Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. This is Asadullah Ali al-Andalusi. We're going to be starting here momentarily. I just want to make sure that all of you can hear my microphone. So please inform me if there are any issues prior to us beginning, and we'll get started in a moment here, okay? I am here with my Dunder Mifflin cup, so I am ready to go, and my tea. All right, good. You can hear me. Good. Alhamdulillah. All right, then. So this is going to be my first refutation in quite some time. And I'm tending to do this live because I feel like it doesn't need to be pre-recorded. And I wanted to actually get this done a little sooner, but unfortunately I've been really busy. My wife is still recovering, so I've been having to play both mommy and daddy for the past couple of days, so I haven't had much time to put this together. However, I did finally get it done, and we are going to start now. So this refutation, I'm going to explain what this refutation is about, who it's targeting, etc. And so let's go into that. Okay. All right, so I'm actually going to be responding to a thread by a Twitter user by the name of AbuTopi. And also I'll be going after some of his associates. Now, many of you people don't know who this person is, and that's fine. But to give you some context as to the purpose of this refutation and why I would be targeting an insignificant Twitter user, it's because, I have a number of reasons why. So, first off, I want to reveal a long-time plan to discredit me through false allegations in order to undermine my criticisms of Daniel Haqiqatjou and his Muslim skeptic team. And AbuTopi and the others I'll be dealing with are sycophants and lackeys of Daniel. And in fact, they have been coming after me repeatedly and quite severely for the past couple of months since I revealed my refutation against Daniel. And they've been doing everything in their power to discredit me without actually dealing with the criticisms that I put forth. And in fact, there are some hints that they're actually working with him as well, that they may be part of the Muslim skeptic team. And I tend to reveal that as well later. Okay? Now, for some more context, Daniel actually liked this particular thread, and he also retweeted it. So he also endorses a lot of the accusations here. And so this is going to be killing two birds with one stone. Not only am I going to be dealing with AbuTopi and his friends, but also revealing the dishonesty and lack of integrity of Daniel as well, even though I won't be mentioning him that much throughout this refutation. So let's continue. The second reason I want to show this to you is to show a case study on the toxic and anti-Islamic nature of the refutation culture currently infecting our dawah. So throughout this refutation, I'll be revealing dishonesty, I'll be revealing anti-Islamic standards and even beliefs that these people hold, because I know many of you have been watching some of my streams in the past, and you'll see that I mention these people in passing sometimes, and I mention what I don't like about their methods, etc. But I often don't give you like an actual example to see, to witness. So this is going to be a case study for you to see exactly what I've been talking about all these months, okay? And finally, to prove why certain individuals are in fact irrelevant and should not be listened to. Now, I know many of you are probably telling me, well, this guy's irrelevant. He's just a troll. Don't feed the trolls. And that's a very legitimate thing to say. However, sometimes we have to go out of the way to prove this to be the case, right? To showcase why they're irrelevant, right? And I intend throughout this refutation to showcase that definitively. And at the same time, to showcase why it's a bad idea for some of these kids to get involved in the refutation culture, especially going against somebody like me. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So here's the thread. A response to the lies of Asad Ali, aka Project Andalus. That used to be my former Twitter name when I had Twitter, and then I just got rid of Twitter because it's a cesspool, and you're going to see why in a moment. So a response to the lies of Asad Ali. Okay, so let's start off, shall we? So, AbuTopi begins. I have been informed that Asad Ali, it's Asadullah Ali, but they want to disassociate me from Allah. So, even though that's not their right. But anyways, he goes on. Recently, I have been informed that Asad Ali has repeatedly ranted on his live streams about me and other individuals who have criticized Yaqeen in the past. I was then sent this now deleted list of allegations, which I will now address. And the allegations were actually deleted because the stream was deleted after one of Daniel's supporters went and harassed my wife on Facebook. But that's for another discussion. So what is this particular thing he's responding to? So in this response, actually, he skips number 1. So let's go to number 2. He says he's going to be responding to AbuTopi et al. Have falsely accused me on numerous occasions of working with CVE and being a traitor to this ummah, even going so far as to support Haytham Saifuddin, who openly declares me a munafiq because of said false allegations. Okay, so here it is. So the first claim here that he's going to be responding to is me claiming that he has falsely accused me on numerous occasions of working with CVE. And CVE is a program that was started by the United States in 2011 that spies on Muslims and generally attacks and criminalizes Muslims for normative Islamic behavior, attaching normative Islamic behavior to terrorism. Okay, and a lot of Muslims have been falsely accused of terrorism and have been falsely criminalized and even jailed for things they never did because they happen to, be Islamic. Okay, so I don't agree with CVE at all. In fact, I've never worked with CVE. We're going to see that in a moment as well. And here I'm claiming that AbuTopi has falsely accused me of working with CVE. Okay? So let's start off with the first claim, all right? What does AbuTopi say in response to this? Well, he says that I have never stated you work with CVE. Rather, you legitimize it and support it, and then he goes on to say something else, and we'll get to that in a moment. He said, so let me first emphasize this. He says, I have never stated you work with CVE. Okay, remember that. He says, I have never stated that you work with CVE. All right. So let's look at if this is true or not. So he's falsely accusing me of falsely accusing him of that I claim that he said that I work with CVE. So he's saying this is false. He's never said this. Okay, well, see, there's this thing called Twitter search function, right? So let's go to December 1st, 2020, last year. Asadullah's work with CVE is extensive. So here's AbuTopi claiming that my work with CVE is extensive. Okay, let's go back a little further. November 30th. Allahu Alam, probably because I came after him for his role in CVE. Right. Let's keep going. Leaked footage of Yaqeen justifying their work with CVE. And here's a picture of me, along with others. Okay. Also, apparently I work with LGBT and I distort the Quran and Sunnah. Right, so other false allegations, slanderous allegations against me. Okay, when have I ever worked with LGBT and distorting the Quran and Sunnah and work with CVE? Okay. Here's another one, August 30th, 2020. If you ever oppose his work with CVE in Malaysia, you must back Daesh, etc. Right. So apparently, AbuTopi has never claimed that I have worked for CVE. Yet we have posts that are only a couple of months old where he openly states explicitly that I have worked with CVE. So no, it is not a false allegation when I accuse you, AbuTopi, of claiming that I work with CVE, because you have said explicitly that I work with CVE. So, word of advice, son, if you're going to incriminate somebody, don't incriminate yourself in the first line of your argument, because right now you've just discredited your entire thread. You've completely destroyed your credibility in the very first line of your thread by falsely accusing me of something that is true, right? Of falsely accusing me of falsely accusing you, when it's not a false statement. You clearly said this about me, right? So apparently you're unashamed of lying because it's very clear that this is what you've accused me of over the months. Okay, so no, I did not lie about you. I did not slander you. In fact, you have slandered me. And now you're changing your argument to something else. Now you're saying rather you legitimize it and support it. So this is what we call the fallacy of hedging, okay, is when somebody changes their accusation to their claim, right? And then what they do is they act like that was what they initially stated to begin with. Okay, so they change the argument, right after the fact. So he goes on to say, so we've already debunked that part, right? That's easy. So rather, you legitimize it and support it. And he goes on to say, you have repeatedly threatened and reported Muslims based off your own assumptions that they were Khawarij. Now, I've never reported anyone because I thought they were Khawarij. I reported people because they have claimed to support ISIS to a large extent and advocated for violence, and or even claimed to be part of ISIS itself. So that's primarily where I have, or Al-Qaeda, right? So those are the people I've actually gone after or reported. Okay. So let's look at some of the evidence he uses. So here's one of the things he gets from my Facebook. Any support for Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization, will be met with an immediate ban and impossible reporting to the authorities. Impossible reporting to the authorities. So here I emphasize the word possible, okay, because I don't just report people randomly because they say, oh, I support Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda or ISIS. In fact, I talk to people or I examine their beliefs and their behaviors prior to saying anything or even thinking about reporting people. And ironically, some of the people that AbuTopi affiliates with on Twitter, have openly expressed support at times for these organizations, or at least their actions. And I have never reported them at all because, generally I just think they're stupid kids, but that's besides the point. So this is one thing. So he says that I'm reporting people because I said I will possibly report you to the authorities. Right, okay. So I don't know how that's support. He goes on to show another thing. So this guy named Abul Ma'ali, which I think who I believe was a Discord moderator on the Muslim chat Discord. Okay. And he says, you've repeatedly called people ISIS supporters and caused them harm and never publicly rectified your mistakes. Don't bring up slander. So this is an interesting post that AbuTopi is using as evidence, because after 22nd of February, when this was posted, I actually reached out to Abul Ma'ali to figure out why he had a problem with me. Okay. And on the 23rd of that same month, the very next day, I went to Muslim chat and I publicly apologized to Abul Ma'ali for something that I did wrong. Sorry, Abul Ma'ali for something that I did wrong. And then I even posted this very post in my own Discord. It's still there. Okay, now it says deleted user because it's my previous account, and it should still be posted, pinned in Muslim chat. Right. Now, what actually occurred before I read all this is that I unintentionally, I was trying to accuse somebody else of something, and I brought up this guy's name, Al-Afghani or something. I said Al-Afghani. And people from Muslim chat assumed I was talking about this guy, Abu Ma'ali, okay? And people started harassing Abu Ma'ali because of my comments. Now, at the time, I didn't realize, but eventually, after everything was explained to me and all the things he went through as a result of my accusations, which I didn't intend for him, I still came out and publicly apologized to him. And then I went out of my way to pin this in my own server. And I even publicly apologized on behalf of my staff who went after him. Right, so let's see here. I'll read it out to you. Assalamu alaikum. This is a message to clarify and rectify an issue surrounding brother Abu Ma'ali al-Afghani. I seek to clear his name of false allegations that he supports the actions and behaviors of groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS or their affiliates. Some time ago, brother Abu Ma'ali came to my server to discuss some issues and was promptly banned after a misunderstanding between he and my staff. I was informed later that it was due to him supporting extremism, quote unquote. When I came to understand the situation, I made a public announcement and reprimanded those who did so. That said, I did not anticipate that any further harm would come to him and was recently informed that he had suffered a great deal of harassment and stress as a result of these actions. On a particular note was an incident that occurred last November when I was discussing ISIS. In that conversation, I mentioned an Al-Afghani. I did not think anything of my mistakes at the time, and I sincerely believed I had been referring to Baghdadi, but my comments were misconstrued by some to refer to brother Abu Ma'ali, who happens to go by Al-Afghani. Still, I did not think ahead at the repercussions of my statements, nor did I concern myself with the blowback that he may receive from my error. To be honest, I was quite apathetic. Not until today did I realize how much my words and the actions of some of my staff have negatively affected him and his reputation. As such, I seek to rectify this by issuing a formal apology on behalf of my staff and myself, and stating quite directly that his reputation should no longer be tarnished by my own inconsiderate behavior. He has attempted to reach out to me in private, but I had forgotten him, either because I didn't take it seriously or because I didn't see that he was actually hurt by all this. Either way, the fault is mine and mine alone. I ask for forgiveness for my actions and pray Abu Ma'ali is to be given great reward and favor by this dunya and most of all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let me ask you a question here. Why would you bring up this as evidence when I actually rectified anything with Abu Ma'ali, right? And at the same time, let me ask you a question, AbuTopi. Would you or any of those people you support, like Daniel or Haytham, would they ever make a post like this, taking responsibility for their actions? Would they ever apologize openly like this? Could you imagine, anyone in this chat, could you imagine Daniel or anyone could actually make a comment like an apology like this? That would be a miracle. I'm pretty sure Judgment Day would follow if that were to happen. Okay, like, don't tell me that I don't rectify my mistakes. Don't try to produce evidence against me when I went out of my own way, even at my own server, to humble myself, to put myself down even, to take responsibility for other people's actions even, okay? When you guys don't even have the conviction or the integrity to do any of those things. And you know what's ironic about this too? What's really ironic about this is that Abu Ma'ali actually liked your thread, knowing that I had apologized to him for this very thing that he was calling me out for. Which shows you their lack of integrity, which shows you how juvenile and petulant they are, is that they don't even recognize when somebody has lowered their wing to them, that they're still willing to ridicule and abuse them regardless of that. Okay? So, interesting, right? So let's continue, shall we? He then goes on to show another picture of me. A brother, well, this is where I'm saying, you're a snitch for reporting and arresting ISIS members, astaghfirullah. Because I had dealt with these sort of arguments in the past. And then I say, yes, because it's a greater sin to snitch than allowing those people to blow up masajid and marketplaces. So I'm calling these people out for what they are, showcasing that they care more about reporting people than they do about these people killing our brothers and sisters. Okay, that was the point. So, now, here's where it gets really funny. So AbuTopi is accusing me of supporting CVE. He's accusing me of supporting CVE because I report people, okay? But what's really interesting is that AbuTopi does the very same thing that he accuses others of doing. So let's look at this tweet. Now, you'll notice here that this tweet was deleted by the tweet author. However, it was written by AbuTopi himself. Remember, links are shown below so you can verify this yourself. And AbuTopi loves to delete things, especially when he finds out they incriminate him. So watch what happens in the near future. He's probably going to delete a lot of the stuff that I'm mentioning. So AbuTopi here was accused of reporting a Muslim. Okay? And when he was responded to by Vuitton, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, he said, "What's wrong with that?" The guy responds and says, "You mean what's wrong with reporting a Muslim brother who is minding his own business?" And then AbuTopi goes on to justify his reporting. You mean what's wrong with reporting a prominent Daeshi who openly promotes Juhayman? So here, AbuTopi is admitting to reporting ISIS supporters and affiliates on Twitter, reporting them to the authorities. Okay. This was in January 27th of this year. Right, this was not that long ago. He even complains about people who takfir him for doing this. Aren't you the guy who made takfir of me for reporting Twitter accounts? Right? And he even encourages Muslims, he even encourages people to report other Muslims to the police. So here he's actually saying should give them a taste of their own medicine and report them to the police for harassment. He's actually encouraging Muslims to report other Muslims to the UK Police Department. Okay. And here he's going after me for reporting other Muslims. Now, what's even more interesting about this is that I already know how he's going to respond. He's going to say, well, no, I don't report them to the authorities. I report them to Twitter, which is different. See, that's different, right? And you're going to expect this. So I expected this response, right? Except there's a problem. You see, if you go to Twitter's blog In 2016, they mentioned that they're working with CVE. And I quote, "We cooperate with law enforcement entities when appropriate." Then they're actually lauded by the FBI. And then beginning in late 2013, our global public policy team embarked upon an ambitious outreach campaign attending over 40 countering violent extremism events and trainings on 4 continents. We also attended government-convened summits on CVE hosted by the White House, the Australian Attorney General's Department, the UK government, the French Prime Minister, the European Commission, and the United Nations. So in other words, AbuTopi, when you report people on Twitter for extremism, you're working with CVE. Or, in the very least, you justify and support CVE. So, congratulations, son. I guess we should call you Abu Snitch or Abu FBI, right? I wonder what Muslim chat would think of this. Or maybe Haytham Saif ad-Din, right? Because he made takfir of me for reporting people. I wonder if he'll make takfir of you now, right? And here's some other stuff here. Guidelines for law enforcement on Twitter's help page. They talk about how law enforcement works with them and how to work with them. And that information is even used by independent policy institutes. The information that's accumulated by Twitter on extremism. Here's a Brookings Institute study about ISIS demographics on Twitter. Abu CVE, that's another good one. It has a ring to it, right? Now, he may say, well, I was ignorant of this. I didn't know. I didn't know that Twitter was working with CVE. Really? Well, who cares if you didn't know? Let me say it again. Who cares if you didn't know? Who says you were ignorant anyway? How do we know? Because when other Muslims come out and say they were ignorant of something, like Omar Suleiman, who was ignorant of libations, you don't care. In fact, you mock him after the fact. I've seen you like tweets and stuff like this where they're mocking Omar Suleiman for saying he was ignorant of libations. You don't care. So why should I give you the same benefit of the doubt? I'm sorry, Abu CVE, but that's not going to happen today. Okay? See, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Except in this case, my sword is a lot sharper. So, after this, what's even more ironic after this, AbuTopi retweets this by Zikat 1. How can any Muslim with ghira for his deen ever support the kuffar against a single Muslim? A Muslim may be a rapist, a murderer, or a thief, but so long as they proclaim the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will always be better than all the kuffar on earth. He retweets this in response to kind of try to hurt me a little bit more, right? And this is interesting, because he's basically admitting himself that he doesn't have ghira because he's reporting Muslims to the kuffar. Fascinating. But there's also something wrong with this this whole mentality here that I want to discuss here. How can any Muslim with ghira for his deen ever support the kuffar against a single Muslim, right? And this is actually insulting to the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way that it's written, okay? And I bring up some hadith in support of that. Malik related to me from Yahya ibn Sa'id, that from Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, that Umar ibn al-Khattab had a dispute brought to him between a Muslim and a Jew. Omar saw that the right belonged to the Jew and decided in his favor against the Muslim. And then it goes on, okay? And he did this on the basis of justice. So you're saying that because Omar supported the Jew against a fellow Muslim, that he doesn't have ghira for the religion? Astaghfirullah. Let's continue. Safwan reported from a number of companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the authority of their fathers who were relatives of each other. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Beware if anyone wrongs a contracting man or diminishes his right or forces him to work beyond his capacity or takes from him anything without his consent, I shall plead for him on the day of judgment." And this is under the section in Sunan Abi Dawood of the dhimmis. Okay? So this is talking about a kafir, or people of the book. So the Prophet ﷺ said that any of you who goes against these people, who commits injustice against them, I shall plead for them on the day of judgment against you. So you're saying that the Prophet ﷺ doesn't have ghira? Astaghfirullah. 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 This mentality is so absurd, and I've seen this mentality, especially in real life as well, especially in Western countries, right? That these individuals, they will not even report a fellow Muslim if that Muslim has done something against them. So, for example, if they found out that a Muslim, like an imam or something, has molested or raped their own children, or their wives, or their sisters, they will not say anything. They will not say anything because they don't want to support the kuffar. Okay? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. But they won't even do anything else about it because vigilantism is also haram. Right? You can't do anything. So they won't do anything. Okay, this is the sort of mentality here that has developed. All right? They are more concerned about identity than they are about their principles. All right? Because Islam is based on justice. It's not based on who's Muslim, who's kafir. It's based on justice. In another hadith, that's Hassan in Sunnah Ibn Majah, I asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of Allah, is it part of tribalism that a man loves his people? The Prophet said, no, rather it is tribalism that he supports his people in wrongdoing. If your gira leads to injustice, it's not gira. It is not gira. Do you understand? And the same thing, and this is Sahih, Musnad Ahmed, the Prophet ﷺ, whoever supports his people in oppression is like a camel that falls dead into a well and is pulled out by its tail. And what's even more ironic about this is that on March 20th, 2021, AbuTopi said the following in a tweet. Exposing sins does not matter when the harm caused by the sin abuse is greater than the harm from spreading the news of the sin. Consider this. If a robber enters your house and starts taking your property, will you keep silent because we hide his sin? And of course, it's a rhetorical question because he wants to answer, no, you will not keep silent. But if it's a Muslim, will you keep silent? Because if you go around saying, well, a Muslim robbed from me, then the authorities are going to get involved, are they not? So here you are asking people to reveal a sin, right? To reveal something, a misdeed that has occurred. So if a Muslim rapes your sister or your mother or your child, you're claiming here that we shouldn't hide this. So what's going to happen if you make that accusation? The authorities will be involved, will they not? Will they not? You don't think too much, do you, kiddo? So let's continue. Just to give you also some background here about Haytham, Saif ad-Din, who AbuTopi follows. When he saw this comment on Facebook, he actually accused me of being a munafiq. He used this ayah from the Quran. Give tidings to the hypocrites that there is for them a painful punishment. So he's accusing me of being a munafiq. And on his Facebook page, he notes the same accusation. He screenshots me, and to let you know that he actually did make takfir of me, down here you'll see on the far right hand corner a comment by Ibn Fulan who says, may Allah Ta'ala deal with apostates like him, and Haytham Saif ad-Din liked the comment. Okay, here's a more close-up of that. So I'm wondering when Haytham's going to start making takfir of AbuTopi, if at all, because AbuTopi supports them, so I doubt they will, because, like I said, identity is more important to them than principles. So let's continue here. Oh, before we get over here, I'm going to explain this in a moment. I want to kind of digress for a moment here. So what have we seen so far? Well, first off, we've seen explicit disregard for integrity and honesty. We've seen explicit lie about me, that I falsely accused somebody of saying that I work for CVE, when in fact he did say that, okay? And he unashamedly lies, and then he goes on to showcase his own hypocrisy in the matter of supporting CVE, okay? He then goes on to showcase that he doesn't actually have gira for the religion, and it seems to me that this is a frequent behavior by these individuals engaged in the refutation culture. It's not that they have double standards. Please, you're mistaking my argument if you think that I'm saying that these people have double standards. No, they don't have double standards. They don't have any standards. Because their version of Islam is a Machiavellian version of Islam. It's based more on postmodern identity politics than it is about our principles. So for them, it's an Islam of convenience, right? They're more concerned with using Islam for their identity rather than using their identity for Islam. Okay, and that's why they don't care about integrity. They don't care about being consistent. They don't care about any of these things. Okay, and he's probably wondering at this point. He's probably fuming actually that it was probably a bad idea to go against Asadullah. It was probably a bad idea, and you're right. It was a bad idea because I'm part of the old guard. Okay, I'm part of the old guard. I'm part of the guard of Abdullah al-Andalusi, Zara Faris. All right. All the old da'is before you guys came along and took over Twitter with all your cancer. All right. And other social media platforms. I'm part of the old guard who still respects integrity and honor and dignity when giving dawah. Who thinks apologizing is not a dishonorable thing to do. Okay. Who thinks that's a manly thing to do. All right. You're going against the old guard right now. That is why this is so easy for me. Okay. Because it's not because I'm a genius. It's because you don't have any standards. So now I want to move into something else before getting into his second claim. Okay. And that is what they're actually really angry about. And that is what I did in Malaysia. So it's not just the whole thing about reporting people, right? But it's also about the fact that of what I did in Malaysia. Now, what did I do in Malaysia? Some of you don't know. I've discussed it in other streams before, but I'll kind of go over it briefly here. So while I was in Malaysia, I got my master's degree in Islamic philosophy, and then I started my PhD in Sharia law. Okay? And what happened was that I started to research about ISIS and their tactics and stuff, and I had a personal incident in my life where a friend of mine, I knew his son, actually got caught at the border for trying to join ISIS. So that got me emotionally invested, personally invested in sort of trying to deal with this issue because a lot of youth were getting attracted to them for some reason, right? So I started researching them. I started researching the mentality of these people, etc. And so during this time, I was doing my research. I was starting to give lectures at University of Malaya, etc. Right? And what occurred then was that I was approached by the Malaysian government to give these same lectures to youth across the country. Okay. And these lectures were primarily about me discussing the roots of terrorism and this ideology that ISIS has, right? And I wanted to try to convince a lot of these young students that they should not be attracted to this group. That was basically my only job at first, right? And much of my research was actually against CVE. In fact, most of my research can be found on my iJihad series. Oh, let's go back first because I don't want to do that yet. Where is my thing? Okay, I'll look at that later. So anyways, I'll discuss that in a moment. So that particular picture you saw was me giving a lecture at UIA, Islamic University of Malaya, where I was doing an event hosted by Beyond the Horizon. And therein I was giving a lecture. And the interesting thing about it was that it was, and I'll just read this here so that you understand how much I'm against CVE, okay? Take note, I even mentioned this in the post, take note that the organization is sponsored by the United States Department of States, by the US government. That said, I am taking part in this panel to spread awareness of the roots of terrorism and extremism, all the while offering solutions. In other words, as a US citizen, I will not hold back my criticisms of Western ideology and foreign policy as the primary culprits of terrorism and extremism in the Muslim world. And then I go on to say, I expect the country I was born and raised in to respect my right to speak freely in this respect, despite my allegiance being solely for Islam and my patriotism solely for my now extinct Andalusian legacy, which ironically doesn't make me a patriot at all. Please make dua that I am successful in countering the mainstream myths about terrorism and extremism. So I went to this panel that was actually hosted by the United States government, and I bashed the heck out of the US and the CVE program. Okay? So let me ask you this question, AbuTopi. Oh, by the way, I was not invited back to this after that. Let me ask you a question, AbuTopi, and Daniel, all you guys. Would you go on one of these and would you openly refute them in their face, knowing full well that the security services will be coming after you after that? That they will be looking into you after that? Would you do that? Heck, you can even show your face online on Twitter. So what makes you think that what I've been doing back then was a problem? You don't even have the conviction to show your face on Twitter. I mean, and you think that what I did was wrong? I went up and I talked directly. I used the platform of tyrants against them. And by the way, so in my iJihad series, especially episodes 1 through 3, you'll see a lot of my research against CVE, where I'm actually refuting Islamophobes who are using CVE research against Muslims. Okay? So, and I still support these arguments. I've always been against CVE. So it's ironic how you don't mention these things, right? And those of you who have seen the iJihad series, you know what I'm saying is true. So what did I do after that? Well, after all of my research and all these lectures that I gave, I was actually invited to assist in one operation. And it was actually some drama that occurred before that where I was actually shot at. Believe it or not. I don't want to go into the whole details, but I was actually meeting up with Malaysian police in this one area. And we were discussing some things, and they wanted me to talk to some kid. And I actually got shot at. Okay, so after that event, they thought that I was composed enough to actually engage in field work. Alhamdulillah, I did not get killed or hurt in any way, obviously. But yeah, that was interesting. And so I was invited to engage in an operation where there was reports of a smuggling ring in Thailand that was actually smuggling weapons into Malaysia to plan attacks on Malaysian soil. And it was actually by ISIS affiliates based in Thailand. This is a news report from the Straits Times, busted ISIS cell smuggling arms into Malaysia. This is talking about my operation that I engaged in. And actually, it's underreported. There's a lot of details missing here because a lot of stuff happened on the Thai side and we can't report that, okay? So let me just read some of it. Malaysian police have busted an ISIS terrorist cell that smuggled weapons into Malaysia with the surrender of a cow farmer at the Thai border last week. This is only part of the operation that occurred actually afterwards. Prior to that, there was something that we did inside Thailand, and some of you have actually already know about it. I've talked about it in other streams elsewhere. So let's continue. What exactly did they have? The cell had reportedly been smuggling weapons into Malaysia from Thailand and building up a stockpile for at least a year to prepare for attacks in the country and abroad. The March arrests were believed to be the first time the Malaysian authorities uncovered weapons smuggling by militants linked to ISIS. Security forces believe the cell had at least 5 semi-automatic pistols, a pump gun, and an M4 carbine assault rifle. Actually, there's a lot more than that. There were several M4 carbine assault rifles that we found, and especially even AK-47s. We found grenades, and we found about 1,200 pounds of fertilizer, ammonium nitrate. Okay, and I'll discuss what all that means in a minute. Yes, and this is all working with Muslims. This is not, there was no non-Muslims involved here. This is all Muslims. Okay. So Mr. Khalid said about another 5 ISIS operatives were arrested last week. One was a retired military man who channeled about 20,000 RM or $6,475 to ISIS in Syria, where his son had joined the terrorist group. So these aren't just kids just saying, they like ISIS on Twitter. Okay. These guys were smuggling in weapons, and they were planning attacks. Now, you want to know what attacks they were planning? Well, after all the data we collected, let me tell you what they were going to do. So, first off, let me explain what an M4 carbine is. This is an M4 assault rifle. This is a military-grade weapon issued to the U.S. military. Okay? This is commonly used by Army and Marines, U.S. military. All right? It's a very effective weapon. So these were not just some, random kids getting some weapons together. They actually can get military-grade weapons. Okay? They also had about 1,200 pounds of fertilizer they were utilizing for a bomb. All right? Now, for those of you who don't know what fertilizer can do, ammonium nitrate, remember that Beirut explosion that occurred? That's what ammonium nitrate can do. Several thousands of pounds of fertilizer. Okay? Now, the amount that they had wasn't that amount, but it was quite significant enough to hurt somebody. So, for example, 300 kilogram bomb of ammonium nitrate based bomb that was detonated in Ankara in 2016 killed about 37 people, okay, and injured 70 others. And it was based in a car. It was a car bomb. So that's about 650 pounds worth of fertilizer. Now, they had about 1,200 pounds. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what are they going to use it for? Well, from what we gathered, based on their text messages as well as written records, and based on the logistics of their movements, etc., right, we found out that they were going to plan certain attacks in the state of Kelantan, the northern state of Kelantan in Malaysia. Now, let me explain where that is. So here's the northern state of Kelantan. Okay, and on this side, where this river is, right, this is Thailand. Okay, so they were sneaking in to the Golok River, and they were going to start attacks here, okay, and here. This is only a few of them, but let me explain why this particular spot that I've marked here is significant. So Siti Khadija Market in Kota Baru, Kelantan, okay, is where their first attack was going to occur. And it's a significant place because it's considered a landmark in Kelantan. It is one of the most popular marketplaces in Kelantan. And they're also going to attack somewhere else. So let me explain what they were going to do. This is Siti Khadija Marketplace. It's actually a very beautiful place. You see all these sisters selling their vegetables, etc. And you see, yeah, there's even a sister there holding a child. There's some kids running around here. It's nice, right? Very beautiful place. So their intention was to attack this marketplace on Juma, on Friday. Because, and that's significant for a number of reasons. One, because all of the men go to the mosque on Juma. So they were going to attack this place when it was full of women and children. Okay? So let me tell you how they're going to do that. So this is the outskirts. This is near the back end of the complex. And here was where they're going to bring in, what they wanted to do was they wanted to bring in pallets of that fertilizer. Okay? They were even discussing possibly doing so through motorcycles, taking in like small portions of, because a typical moto can carry about 350 pounds. So they were going to bring in it on pallets and bring it to the center complex. And they were going to place those pallets on individual areas next to these pillars here. And they were going to also bring one maybe in the center here. Okay? Now their intention wasn't to kill everyone, right? They were going to detonate in a crowded area these pallets of fertilizer bombs in specific locations to cause what we call chaos. Okay? And so they were going to kill a bunch of people in the center here. Probably all these women and children here, if they had been present, they would all be dead. Because if you're pretty close, if you're within this range, everyone in the center here is pretty much dead. They're all gone. You can't recognize them. Okay? And what they were planning to do, what they were really going to do is after this bombs exploded, people were going to rush out into these hall areas here. Okay? So the sides. All right? And they were going to stand at the entrances with their M4 carbines, and they were going to shoot these women and children and others running towards the exits. Okay, that was their plan. All right. Now, while this was happening, sorry, I have to. I actually visited this place on a few occasions. You have no idea how many kids. Okay, so that was their plan. So while they were doing this, they were going to do this, another contingent were going to be attacking a very famous mosque, another landmark, not too far away, called the Mohammadi Mosque. And while this attack was occurring, they were going to position themselves on all the entrances, and they were going to fire at all the incoming worshippers, outgoing worshippers that were coming in. Okay? So this was what the attack that they were going to be planning. Now, we eventually arrested these individuals before they could plan these attacks. Now, let me ask you a question. Had I been based in New Zealand, and I had an opportunity to work with the authorities to investigate this man here, Tarrant, who was responsible for the Christchurch shooting, which killed 51 Muslim brothers and sisters. For those who don't remember, he went to two mosques, and he slaughtered numerous Muslims in cold blood. If I had been told to stop him, would my work be considered halal? If the answer is yes, then we have an issue here. Because according to you, Muslim blood is cheaper when it's being killed by other Muslims. So you're basically claiming that it's okay for me to stop somebody like him from killing a Muslim, but if it's an ISIS person, it's okay. I can't do anything. We're not allowed to stop these people at all. Now, if your answer is no, that's another problem that you're going to have to answer to all your followers and friends. So just something to think about. I'm okay, don't worry. I just thought about my daughter for a moment when I imagined those kids. Let me ask you a question as well here. Here's a hadith. Whoever defects from obedience to the emir and separates from the main body of Muslims and dies in that state dies the death of one belonging to the days of Jahiliyyah. And he was killed under the banner of a man who is blind to the cause to which he is fighting, who gets flared up with family pride and fights for his tribe, is not from my ummah. And whosoever from my followers attacks my followers indiscriminately, killing the righteous and the wicked of them alike, sparing not even those staunch in faith and fulfilling not his obligation towards them, who have been given a pledge of security, is not from me and is not my follower. And yet you want to tell me that we should have ghira for ISIS, that we shouldn't have done anything to stop them from killing other Muslims. This is the sort of ghira these people believe in, that they would be willing to protect terrorists, people who actually wanted to slaughter innocent brothers and sisters and children. Even when the Prophet ﷺ himself disassociated himself from them, he did not have ghira from these people, but yet you have ghira for them. What sort of ghira is that? Work with the kuffar? If I really was working with the kuffar, I would have allowed ISIS to do what they did, because that's what kuffar want. They want us to kill each other. So he goes on. He says, you wrote an entire article whitewashing Yakin's explicit ties to a CVE organization? C-Post, claiming that Julio Rivera worked for the U.S. Army and advised military generals to defend Syrians. Okay, so we're going to see what this evidence he has here by the Sultanate, and I'm targeting the Sultanate in this as well very soon. But first off, let's see what I actually did write. So I did not write an entire article whitewashing Yakin's explicit ties to any CV organization, C-Post. In fact, what I did was that I wrote an entire portion of an article regarding the accusations against Yakin Institute regarding CVE. And therein, I produced quite a bit of evidence. You can go read it down below, where I analyzed his arguments and I provided sufficient evidence against them, including but not limited to the fact that Yakin Institute has produced articles explicitly bashing CVE, explicitly refuting CVE, explicitly undermining CVE. Okay? So you completely ignored that. You and Sultanate completely ignored those things. You even ignored the fact that I defended Dalia Mujahid from the accusations against her. You completely ignored those. And you focused basically on only 10% of this particular part of the refutation. And I find that really fascinating, how you completely ignored the vast majority of my refutation and focused on only two little parts because, well, we all know you can't answer them, right? You can see the link down below. It's on my website. So I did not whitewash anything, but let's look at his claims. So he claims, so this whole thread by the Sultan is actually quite long. It's actually 5 threads in one. But I'm not going to go through the whole thing because there's only 2 main points that we have to address to showcase how nonsensical their views are against Yakin Institute. So here we have an individual by the name of Dali Akambo, who said, "What is your proof that Yakin knowingly, purposely, and engaged with an established player in the CV and CT industry? Because that is the crux of the matter. Is that what you are alleging?" And AbuTopi responds and says the following. Here is the summary of the Sultanate's threads. The Facebook photo is of the director of a CTCV org linked to the military. Facebook post shows Yakin Institute wanting to collaborate, and a LinkedIn profile of someone who worked for CVE, apparently. Okay, so let's look at what these main points are. So thank you, AbuTopi, for summarizing this thread for us, because I don't want to go through the whole thing. It's really, most of the thread is just a bunch of waffling and non sequiturs and red herrings and insults towards me anyway. It's basically if you had a guy with fish wire and Post-it notes, in a room by himself, he's like, they're all connected, bro. That would basically be the description of the thread. So let's go through the relevant points, okay? Oops, going forward. So first of all, let's see what Sultanate says about what he's saying about Yakin. No one accuses Yakin of taking CVE funding or supporting its framework, but there are reasons to believe it has engaged in CTCVE in some capacity. Okay, well, first off, how is anyone working for Yakin? How is anyone working for CVE in Yakin or being supported by it or anything of the sort if we don't get funding and we don't support its framework? Because if we explicitly go against its framework and we're not receiving funding, how are we working with CVE or collaborating with them? That doesn't make any sense. That's already questionable, right? So he had to water down his statements against me, I guess, after seeing my refutation. He goes, if not, then why does Yakin seek future collaboration with CPost, an established player in the CV and CT industry? He goes on to say, we know Omar Soleiman held a meeting and shook hands with CPost director Robert Pape in 2017, where they promoted Pape's book, Cutting the Fuse, a book that, for all intents and purposes, calls for a sustainable strategy of using air and naval power to secure U.S. interest. So there's a Facebook post where Omar Soleiman shakes this Robert Pape's hand, and Robert Pape is pretty much well known for refuting the CVE narrative about how religion is tied to terrorism. Okay, so this is funny because we're going to go on in a second here. So eventually he admits, after my refutation as well, that how reassuring that no collaboration ever materialized, because no collaboration ever materialized. We never worked with them. Should one had been offered, would Yakin have refused it in principle? Let us look at the disgraceful revision of Julio's work. So this is where, so he basically admits that we never collaborated, that nobody ever collaborated with CPost. Okay. That Yakin thought about it and then didn't eventually collaborate with them at all. And this is the evidence that AbuTopi is using. Okay. So let me show you the argument they basically have in a nutshell. Yakin Institute thought about collaborating with X. X is affiliated with CVE, apparently. Yakin did not collaborate with X, therefore Yakin collaborates or supports CVE. This is a non sequitur, okay? This is a fallacious argument. And here's the funny thing about it. So, to give you a better understanding of why this is ridiculous, he goes on to say, innocent brothers and sisters have had their lives ruined from official police investigations, etc. I agree with this statement. And then he goes on to say, read UK Cage's article and report on the science of pre-crime for some food for thought. So they don't agree with pre-crime, right? And what pre-crime is, and I've read this report, I agree with this report, by the way. I've used it, I think, in the past as well, in my own research. So they are against pre-crime. So AbuTopi and the Sultanate are against pre-crime. And what pre-crime is that you basically criminalize behaviors or thoughts of people prior to them engaging in sort of like criminal activities. So this is what you think is going to be a criminal person. So you prosecute them, you criminalize their actions. So for example, CVE and Prevent are known for going after Muslims and thinking they support terrorism just because they become more religious, because they grow their beards out, because they pray a lot, because they go to the masjid. Even like having materials like, oh, they own a magazine by ISIS, or they're online and they have an ISIS flag or something, and they criminalize this stuff. Now, I disagree with this vehemently. Like I cannot stress enough how ridiculous this pre-crime notions are. Okay, this whole narrative, all right? Because even I would be accused of terrorism support because, I mean, I have lots of works by ISIS that I study. Okay, so it's a thought crime thing, right? Now, what's fascinating about this whole entire thread that the Sultanate has produced is that his entire argument is based on pre-crime, based on the thought of pre-crime. His entire argument sounds like somebody who works for CVE or Prevent. Okay? In other words, he doesn't like pre-crime, but if it's against the Yakin Institute, then it's fine. You see, kids, I can make memes too, except mine are a lot more thoughtful. So, tea break. So it's fascinating how you're against pre-crime, but you're trying to make someone guilty. You're making Yakin Institute guilty for thinking about collaborating with somebody, and it may not even have been for reasons that you think. Right? So congratulations. You support pre-crime. That is your evidence, is pre-crime. Yes, this is going to stay up afterwards. He goes on to say, oh, by the way, I want to mention something about Cage as well. They wrote a post or a report recently, I think in 2020, which gives their alternative to a lot of the prevent and the counterterrorism laws. And I largely agree with this entire statement here. So let me read it out loud. And finally, in responding to the question of what we should do about terrorism, okay, we believe that we do not need counter-terror laws to deal with acts of actual political violence when they occur. Acts of violence should be treated as criminal law matters through pre-2000 legislation such as the Offense Against the Person Act. So Cage is not saying that we can't use Western laws to prosecute Muslims engaged in terrorism. They're simply opposed to counterterrorism laws that currently exist because they are flawed and are not evidence-based. So in other words, according to you guys, AbuTopi and Sultanate, the Cage works with the kuffar. They go on to say, strict liability offenses that relate to possession of materials or the dissemination of ideas should be removed entirely from the statute books, and any crimes that incite violence should be dealt with as crimes of incitement. I agree with this. Frameworks exist for prosecuting crimes of violence which precedes modern counter-terror law and which are adequate on their own terms. So again, they're saying that English law prior to 2000 is sufficient for dealing with terrorism. They're not saying we should not prosecute terrorist Muslims. Okay? So they are advocating for pre-2000 law. Right? The only thing they're objecting to is contemporary laws. Right? So I'm sorry, but they're not exactly supporting your views here. Crucially, these concern themselves with actual acts or provable intentionality rather than crimes of thought. So if you can prove the intention to commit a crime, so for example, what happened in Malaysia when they were planning to bomb, a marketplace and slaughter men, women, and children by smuggling weapons, which by the way is also a criminal offense, into Malaysia to plan these attacks, that is called provable intentionality. Okay? According to you, we're not allowed to do anything. So it's interesting how you use Cage, but Cage doesn't even agree with your analysis against me and Yakin. So then he goes on, he mentions something about Julio working for the Department of Defense when he first reverted and then eventually working for C-Post prior to joining Yakin. And I've gone over this in my review, in my refutation, and they essentially basically like ignore a lot of points in there to smear Julio. But I'm not going to go over all of those. I think that I've adequately acquitted him, but I just want to point out that this is their argument. Julio used to work with X and Y. X and Y are affiliated apparently with CVE. And the DOD couldn't be because he worked with the DOD from 2009 to 2012, and CVE didn't start until 2011, mid to late 2011. So he actually left like a couple of months after CVE was implemented. So Julio now works for Yakin Institute. So he left C-Post, and then a year later he came to Yakin. Therefore, Yakin collaborates or supports CVE. This is their argument. Because Julio used to work for something that they think is attached to CVE. Therefore, Yakin, and now he works for Yakin Institute, therefore Yakin works with CVE. This wouldn't even pass in a Sharia court, let alone a Western court. Again, this is just pre-crime all over the place. Sultanate is behaving like a prevent agent, like a CVE agent, trying to connect the dots in order to accuse people of things, right? Yes, I have the FBI on speed dial, but I also have Pizza Hut on speed dial. So apparently I work with Pizza Hut. And AbuTopi also supports FBI because he reports Muslims on Twitter, and Twitter works with CVE. So, right? Let's continue. So let's go to claim 2. We've already destroyed claim 1. I think I've just completely obliterated claim 1. I think I wouldn't even have to keep going after this point. I think your reputation is gone, AbuTopi. I mean, you're done at this point. And the Sultanate, you guys are just done. But I'm going to keep going because I believe in overkill. I believe that you will only learn through this method. So I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to keep revealing things about you and others. Okay? So I go on to claim that he claims that I'm a traitor to this ummah. Okay? He then says, he misquotes me. He says, they have labeled me a traitor. I didn't say labeled. Okay? Go back. Can I go back? I said, and being a traitor. I never said labeled. Okay, so he misquotes me. That's beside the point. They have labeled me a traitor to this ummah. Where have me, Cyber Mufti, the Sultanate, or one Dawah ever said this? If you make a claim substantiate or it's a clear lie. Okay, well, first off, why wouldn't you consider me a traitor to this ummah if I indeed did work with CVE? See, so you've just revealed that you actually lack gira. Because if I found out somebody was working with CVE, I would think they were a traitor to this ummah because CVE is against the Muslim ummah. It criminalizes normative Islamic behavior. So why don't you think that I was a traitor to this ummah if you really believe that I was working with CVE? Why don't you think I'm a traitor? What's wrong with you? So you've just exposed that you don't actually have gira because you don't think that I'm a traitor. Maybe it's also because you realize that you'd be a traitor as well, given the fact that you actually report Muslims to the authorities. So congratulations. Now let's continue. So I say, even going so far as to support Haytham Saif ad-Din, who openly declares me a munafiq because of said false allegations. And we already know that that he has done this. Now, the said false allegations, as you know, is that I work with CVE, right? Now look what AbuTopi says next. So he quotes me properly, and then he says, first, it's quite clear that these allegations are in fact true. For those who can't see this, he just said that he never accused me of working with CVE. Now he's saying that the allegations that I work with CVE are true. So which is it? This kid can't even remain consistent in his own thread. So before he's like, no, I never accused you. Now he's accusing me of this. He's saying that these allegations are true. So which is it? Are they not true or are they true? Did you not accuse me or did you actually accuse me? So you're revealing your own inconsistency in the very same thread. And it's very clear that you can't even stay honest for like 2 seconds. So let's continue. Oh, and by the way, you do support, so here's the actual claim, working with CVE, said false allegation. The said false allegations were working with CVE. He goes on, secondly, I have never made taqleed of Haytham Saif ad-Din and do not agree with all his views, as I've explicitly mentioned several times, and thus I have never labeled you a munafiq. Well, first off, I never claimed that you labeled me a munafiq. I said that you support somebody who does. You're saying, well, I don't agree with all of his views. You don't agree with all of his views? Well, that's nice. That's nice that you don't agree with all of his views. Then why don't you come out and actually say that? Why don't you actually come out and make a thread about Haytham Saif ad-Din making takfir of me? Right? Because you apparently are upset when people make takfir of you for reporting people to the authorities, for reporting Muslims to the authorities. But when he does it, when Haytham Saif ad-Din makes takfir of me openly, you have nothing to say. Why is that? Oh, AbuTopi privated his account? Oh, that's unfortunate. I was going to give him some options at the end of this to save face and to repent and apologize. So I guess he's already taken one of those options. He's probably cleaning up his Twitter as we speak. This is okay, kids. Again, sorry to digress. This is why you don't get involved in refutation culture, especially against somebody who essentially built refutation culture. Okay, one of the old guard. All right. These new da'is, whatever they want to call themselves, don't hold a candle to what we used to do, what we had to go through, and the arguments that we had to make. So you want to get involved? Guess what? Now you're part of it. How does it feel being on the other end? Let's continue. You may post this video. We're going to continue. So, even others have called you out for this lack of standards. So when you are so this is Brother Ahmed said this. He said, so when are you going to make a thread criticizing Haytham for all his blatant takfir against other people and tell others to stay away from him? Because Haytham Saifuddin is a takfiri. In fact, he's for all intents and purposes, he's a khariji. Okay, he actually works alongside people who are known criminals, like Ahmed Jabril, who was sent to prison for a number of things, including but not limited to fraud and abusing people. Okay. So why aren't you posting threads about these people? It's because of tribalism. It's because of your Machiavellian Islam. You don't have principles. You only care about identity. You only care if somebody is attacking somebody you don't like. That's the issue. And we're going to see more evidence of this later as well. So let's go to claim 4. And this is his last thing that he goes after me for. Okay, or officially speaking, because after that he waffles a lot. And we'll discuss that as well. He said, so this is what I claim. He says, all of the individuals in question, the people that I've discussed in the stream that this comment is talking about, have either slandered other people's wives, sisters, and mothers as glamour models, a derogatory term for a woman who sells her body sexually for marketing, Playboy and swimsuit models, or openly supported people who have without any criticism towards them at all. Now here's what AbuTopi says in response. He quotes only half of my statement, and he says, this is a complete lie. If this is true, where's evidence for it? When have I ever labeled anyone a glamour model? Again, let's look at the comment. I never accused AbuTopi of saying this, of claiming that other women are glamour models. This is what I said. All of the individuals in question have either done this or openly supported people who have without any criticism toward them. So the latter part actually applies to AbuTopi. And I mentioned this in the stream that was deleted because the person who did make these accusations was Daniel Hakikaju himself. Yes, Mukit Khan, this is the fallacy of suppressed evidence. And this is something that these people do all the time. They delete people's statements to falsely accuse them of things. This is the same thing that Daniel has done. So AbuTopi and Sultanate and others have learned a lot from Daniel. Okay, so as you can see, he deliberately leaves this part out. Now, for those of you who don't understand what or means, or is a conjunction that means used as a function word to indicate an alternative. So grammatically speaking, there's no way that I could have accused him of this. Okay, of the former part of that statement, right? So let's continue. So let's look at this accusation. Let's see if this accusation is true, okay, about all the individuals in question. So for example, let's focus on Daniel Hakikaju, what he said about glamour models. And before we go, let's look at the definition of glamour model, okay? The word glamour model in British English, and this should appeal to AbuTopi since he's British, right? He's UK citizen. A woman who models topless or nude for photographs. Okay. Another definition from Oxford Learning Dictionary, a person, especially a woman, who is photographed wearing very few or no clothes in order to make the person looking at the photograph sexually excited. Okay. Let's look at the US definition. It's very similar. And here's from modelingadvice.com, and I had to block out the picture because it was so revealing. I'm sorry. He says, I'm getting a lot of young visitors under 18 to this site, so I won't go into this too deeply. Glamour modeling is modeling for photos with a sexual theme. This might be a simple cheesecake or beefcake photo. They can include bikini, sexy outfits, and lingerie models. So let's keep going down. As one moves to greater states of undress, you move into the adult entertainment industry. Okay. And what does it say after that? with high-end men's magazines like Playboy and then on down to the low-end back alley magazines. But it is the internet that dominates this field and is now loaded with all levels of sexual model photos. Glamour modeling and its triple X component is a very big industry. Top glamour models can make as much as top fashion models. So, this is the definition of glamour models. Okay? Now, let's see who Daniel accuses of being a glamour model. Remember these definitions. We go to his refutation on MuslimSkeptic.com. Glamour hijabi models everywhere. Let's look at the evidence that he uses to showcase that Yakin and others use glamour models. This sister is one of them. He accuses this sister of being equivalent to a Playboy, a swimsuit model, selling her body sexually. Okay? Let's continue. He accuses this sister of being a glamour model. So she's equivalent. She's in the same group as Playboy models and swimsuit models. Okay? Topless women, women who show their breast. Let's continue. He accuses this sister of being a glamour model. Let's continue. He accuses these sisters of being glamour models. It reminds me of the Quran. Indeed, those who falsely accuse chaste, unaware, and believing women are cursed in this world and the hereafter, and they will have a great punishment on the day when their tongues, their hands, and their feet will bear witness against them as to what they used to do. That day Allah will pay them in full their true deserved recompense, and they will know that it is Allah who is the manifest truth. It's one thing to disagree with women putting their posters up, their pictures up online. It's another thing to accuse women, fully covered sisters, of being equivalent to Playboy and swimsuit models. Astaghfirullah. Right? And this is what the Sultanate had to say about my criticisms of Daniel Hakikaju using this statement about these sisters. And this is the thing that also AbuTopi supports. As a genuine criticisms of Yakina's sister are getting buried amidst the relentless nitpicking, he claims that me pointing out falsely accusing sisters of being glamour models is nitpicking. Nitpicking. This is nitpicking to them. Okay. Yeah. Nitpicking. And, you know, AbuTopi likes to make himself appear as though he's always defending sisters. Like, oh, astaghfirullah, you can't say this about sisters. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, I'm here to protect you. And yet he and Sultanate and others believe that calling somebody out for falsely accusing sisters of being equivalent to Playboy models is nitpicking. Okay, sure, you really care about sisters, all right. He goes on to, now all of these claims are done. So everything that I've shown, and AbuTopi and others did not go against Daniel after this. They didn't say anything. They said absolutely nothing. They haven't made a big threat about it. They didn't try to nuke his social media accounts. They didn't do anything. They didn't care. And so all of these accusations that I've posted are true. I have not slandered or lied at all about AbuTopi. Everything, as you can see, was true and was proven by evidence. On the day of judgment, it is very clear who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to side with in this regard. And it's not AbuTopi. Okay, I'm not speaking for Allah. I'm speaking based on fact. I'm speaking based on my reputation being proven to still be intact, that I'm the one who has integrity here and the one accusing me does not. And this is what these people do. Okay, they continuously lie unashamedly about others in order to boost themselves up. All right, tea break. But I want to keep going because, as I said, I believe in overkill. Okay, and I want to keep going because I want to show everyone exactly what these people are like. So he goes on to waffle. And he starts throwing mud like crazy because he wants something to stick. All right. And so here we're going to start dealing with his waffling. All right. So this refutation is not over. You know, frankly, it's just getting started. He says, I did not nuke Muslim Twitter. That was a Discord server. And AbuTopi takes credit for nuking it because I'm a Kharijite. And you and other mods claimed, well, we didn't accuse you of being a Kharijite because you nuked the server. We accuse you of that for other things, okay, which I think was the reason you nuked the server, but that's for that. We're going to get to that in a minute. I nuked precisely because sisters and others were being slandered by you and other mods, right? And then he shows some pictures. So here's again, he's using sisters. He's using sisters to kind of like, he does this a lot online. He uses sisters to sort of virtue signal, to show that he's white knights. He virtue signals to make himself look good. I did it for the sake of the sisters. I nuked the server for the sake of the sisters. Mashallah, look at me, you know. And it's like, okay, but yeah, you didn't go about nuking anyone else when they called everyone glamour models. You're perfectly fine with that. But, you know, let's see exactly what he claims he nuked the server for, okay? And you're going to find out in a moment how ridiculous this is. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get into that, let's look at what he does. Later on in the thread, he mentions my wife. And I would want to read this to you to show you how he uses sisters. I would have responded to this some time ago had it not been for Assad's wife's pregnancy. May Allah protect her and the children. I don't go after the innocent. I certainly do not slander people in a sexual manner, and I condemn all who do any of these. First off, what does my wife have anything to do with this? She's not involved in this scene. She's not on Twitter. You know, what does my wife have to do with you delaying your slander of me? I had to hold off for the sake of Assad's wife. His pregnant wife. You were slandering me when she was pregnant, though. I mean, I showed you post in December. My wife was pregnant in December. You didn't seem to care then, where you were slandering me about working with CVE. So, I mean, this doesn't even seem relevant. What's the purpose of bringing up my wife? See, so here he's using my wife to make himself look honorable. Look, oh yeah, I held off because of Assad's wife. I care so much about his wife. Yeah, exactly, Silas Grayson. I'm being noble because you have a pregnant wife. I mean, you know, he complains a lot on Twitter about not being able to find a wife. Or, you know, and how brothers can't find wives. You know, here's something that you should know, AbuTopi. From one man to a boy. If you want to get a wife, first thing you should do is be sincere, because women can pick up on that. They can pick up on insincerity quite a bit. Okay? And secondly, they don't like creepy people. You know, always mentioning women to make yourself look good, it looks creepy. Okay, it's creepy. All right, stop it. And don't mention my wife again. There's no reason to bring up my wife in this at all. Okay? So let's continue with these pictures, okay? So he shows these pictures. So first off, let's look at this picture. This is about Brother Sajid. So this was during, from what I understand the context of this, I remember I was in Muslim Twitter this day, and I was complaining about Sajid essentially accusing me of something that I didn't believe in. Okay, it was on Twitter. It was about Sharia and the punishments for apostasy. And so I said I'm bringing up this whole thing, right? There's no slander here, okay? His followers were making takfir of me, and I was upset that he slandered me because that's what I believed, okay? This conversation continues, and Amin comes in and says, yes, I'm on your side. It's just I know they can't wait for this kind of stuff to misquote you. So he even recognizes that Sajid was misquoting me. And my Twitter is now gone, so I can't prove any of this stuff that well. But this was the context of the discussion. And I said, I already blocked him. I said, his heart is either black as death or he's too stupid to realize what he's doing. And I still follow that. It's not slander. Okay, you just didn't like the fact that Sajid got criticized. All right, that's for his own dishonest tactics. Next, apparently this is the slander of sisters. Okay, so Noor, who is a moderator, I guess, said, you can have a private chat with all the female chit-chatters who are having your coffee and doing namima. So he's accusing the sisters of doing namima. She comes in and says, you're slandering us, and he says, you're a cancer. Okay, I don't even know the full context of this whole discussion or what happened, to be honest. And the thing is, we will never know the full context of these discussions because AbuTopi deleted the whole server and then snapshotted what he wanted to snapshot without showing the full context. So we can't even go to the server to prove what is actually done or said. So it's convenient for him to claim that he did something for slander, yet he won't allow access to the evidence. How can you trust somebody like that, especially after we've already proven that he's lied on several occasions, especially about me? So we don't even know exactly the reason. Now, I have an idea about why he did it, and I think it has a lot to do with something else. Oh, yeah, here's another thing. He says, we should ban this girl, and then they said she's extreme. So, apparently it's wrong. You want to nuke a whole server for calling a sister extreme and accusing a sister of doing namima. But when Daniel calls innocent sisters glamour models, you don't want to nuke anything. Suddenly you're just like quiet about it, which proves that you actually have more fear of Daniel Hakikaju than you do Allah. Because if you had any consistency or any principles whatsoever, you would be just as angry about that, even worse. But you don't care. So, yeah. Don't give me this whole, I want to protect the sisters. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. And the reason we know that there's probably something else going on here about this whole Muslim Twitter thing is because Amin called him out when this happened. So I don't even know the context of the discussion entirely, but he's saying maybe you should ask Abu Suja'a about how we respectively talked about the whole thing for 2 hours, but you won't, will you? And he said, I literally forbade any ill speech of Abu Suja'a in my person, you know it. And then as a result of getting called out, AbuTopi deleted his tweet. Didn't apologize, just deleted his tweet. And he does this a lot. Like I said, he deletes stuff when he knows he's been refuted. Okay? Emin goes on. You're genuinely a snake. He's talking to AbuTopi here, as you can see. And he says, Wallahi, admit and repent for deleting the chat from which you're taking screenshots. Don't lie to me. You know it and I know it. Wallahi al-adim, I will not let this go until you repent. So he's recognizing that AbuTopi deleted the chat and then taking selective screenshots. So we can't trust this guy already, okay? Goes on. And there's more context here. AbuTopi now pretends to be innocent and is using batil to defend his khariji behavior, i.e. the real reason he deleted the chat. Okay? The real reason that AbuTopi deleted the chat is because he was trying to cover his own tracks. All right, that's the reason. And I can't go into more detail because we don't have full evidence here, but just want to make this clear. He then goes on to say to the snake that takes screenshots and deletes the chat so people can't go back to the history to share the full context. Exactly. How can you trust somebody who does that? He's trying to incriminate other people, yet he's the only one with access to the evidence. You can't trust somebody like that. Sorry. So, I don't know what he's trying to do here, but it's obvious that it's not working in his favor. And as I said, he likes to delete things, okay? So when he was called out for slander last year, somebody called him out and said, you'll be answering slander. He just deletes stuff. He just deletes things and doesn't apologize, doesn't take accountability for it at all. He just deletes things and acts like nothing happened. Okay, so this is AbuTopi. This is the personality I'm talking about. This is the type of people who are engaged in this refutation culture. This is their mentality. It's a very Machiavellian Islam that's based around defending their own identities over defending Islam. They use Islam for the sake of their identity, not their identities for the sake of Islam. And there are signs of nifaq. Now, that doesn't mean they're munafiqeen. Be very clear. But they have signs of nifaq in that they are very much okay with deliberately lying about people and hiding evidence that incriminates them. Okay? So let's continue. We're not done yet. So this whole thing here is all virtue signaling. This whole entire display here that he's trying to throw at us is all virtue signaling. Okay? He goes on. Oh, and Assad, you're the one who talks about accusing people of haram sexual acts. Remember when we banned you for publicly telling a teenage boy on our server to divorce his hand, i.e. implying he masturbates? You're a complete hypocrite. First off, I've been banned from the server, so I can't provide evidence to the contrary. But let me tell you my side of the story. I was wrong to say this to this young man. I was very wrong. And as far as I'm aware, I actually apologized and repented for it. Now, they're not going to show you that, and they probably deleted it by now. Okay, because if I'm willing to apologize for things that I didn't even mean to do, like with Abu Ma'ali, and I post that in my own server, why would I not apologize for this? I did indeed apologize. It was wrong. It doesn't matter what the reason was. This was wrong for me to say. I should not have said this. And this is me taking responsibility for myself. This is me apologizing again and repenting again for what I said. Unlike that's something that you, AbuTopi and Sultanate and Daniel and others can't do. Okay, because I'm a man and I follow Islamic principles. I make mistakes. I will apologize. I'm not ashamed to do that. I don't consider that a weakness. I consider that a strength. All right. However, I was not banned because of this. The reason I was banned is because for the nth time, I had to come into your server, Muslim chat, and defend myself against false accusations that I work with CVE and the FBI. And during this time, there was a lot of back and forth between me and this young man and others. And your moderators don't do anything about that. Your moderators don't care about the slander against me. They've never banned anyone or even punished anyone for these things. And as a result of this longer discussion, finally, I think somebody tried to apologize, but basically it was like a half-hearted attempt to basically cover for themselves. And I said to the moderators, no, you will do something about this so it stops, because it's like the 5th time that I was accused or something along those lines. I don't remember how much exactly, but it was a lot. And as a result of me challenging the moderators, as a result of me rejecting that apology because nobody would actually do anything about it, there was no sincerity at all in that server, I was banned. And you know what's funny about it? You know what I was banned for? The reason? Extremism. That was actually the reason I was banned. Extremism. Another irony to add on to this refutation. So let's continue. Okay, so this is... Yeah, I told you it's going to be kind of long, huh? Take a break. Okay, so you want to take a quick break, maybe a 5-minute, 10-minute break, everyone? So, any comments so far about AbuTopi and this refutation? You're destroying AbuTopi's ego. Well, hopefully, because then maybe he'll start following Islamic principles. I am drinking Moroccan tea, actually. It's my favorite. I love you as well. I'm sorry about that. I usually don't let myself go like that, but it was hard to... Machiavellian means that you do everything for the sake of your own desires. It's like your nafs. Basically, you're doing everything. You don't have any principle other than to get power and influence. Who's claiming that those plans were fake to bomb the mosque? They have no evidence of that. I was there. I saw the evidence. Okay, we confiscated the weapons. What were they going to use the weapons for? What, to put up on their wall? Why were they smuggling them into Malaysia? To possess those firearms is illegal. They were working with ISIS. This is nonsense. Anyone who claims it's fake, they have no evidence for that. I was there. We risked our lives to stop these people, to protect our brothers and sisters and those children from being killed and slaughtered. I mean, how dare they claim that it's fake? Oh, because they want to protect themselves from criticizing me now? That they claimed that some of them claimed I was a monafik, others supported them who claimed that I was a monafik. They claimed that I'm a traitor to this ummah. They claim they want to shame me for working to stop these people. Astaghfirullah, these people are pathetic. Well, the government planned it. They have no evidence for that. It's nonsense. They can't, I mean, this is, see, it showcases their support for ISIS because they don't want to be incriminated. And remember, again, Daniel's the one who's supporting, he supported this thread. He retweeted this thread. So so again, I'm proving that he doesn't have integrity either. So, shall we continue? Yeah, everything is a false flag. Everything that disagrees with us is a false flag. They have no evidence for it. So let's continue. He goes on to throw some more mud. He says, and if you really are consistent, how about you condemn Yakin's troll bots who continue to slander and attack DH's wife to this day? Well, first off, I noticed this before I left Twitter that apparently there's Yakin bots. Everyone who is criticizing Daniel is a Yakin bot, apparently. because they can't handle that people actually criticizing them. So you see how sensitive they are to criticism, that they have to accuse people of being bots. Okay. Let's continue though. And apparently I'm not consistent because I didn't condemn these bots for going after his wife, slandering and attack DH's wife to this day. Well, first off, AbuTopi, unlike you, I don't spend all my time on Twitter looking for things to complain about. In fact, I don't even have a Twitter anymore, so it's probably because I didn't recognize any of this stuff. I actually have a job, and I take care of my wife and my child. I don't tweet every day and make memes every day. Okay, so this is not, so obviously I'm going to miss some stuff, right? So I do apologize that I didn't come out and condemn things that I wasn't aware of before. But let's look at exactly what these accusations are. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Okay, so first off, let me get rid of this too because I don't want to show this comment anymore. All right, so Dan went to a mixed university and met his wife there. I bet he wasn't complaining then. LOLOL. Okay, well, first off, Daniel did go to a mixed university and met his wife there because they both went to Harvard University, which is a mixed university. All right. Sorry about that. So I don't know how that's slander. Apparently you don't understand what slander is, because a slander is when you lie about somebody and try to harm their reputation. So yeah, he did go to Harvard, a mixed university, and that's where he met his wife because they both went to Harvard. So that's not a slander. He then goes on to say, when are you making a video about how Daniel's wife started an interfaith group? She also started an interfaith group, or she was part of an interfaith group at Harvard University. So that's also not a lie. So I don't see how this is evidence of slander, but okay. Let's continue. Daniel Hakikachu's wife recently posted that she went to an aquarium. Okay. I don't know how this is slander because I don't understand the context. But, if somebody accused me of going to an aquarium, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. I'm going to take my daughter to an aquarium when she gets old enough. I like going to the aquarium. I don't know why an aquarium, accusing somebody of going to an aquarium is a bad thing. Maybe that's a new thing among you guys, going to an aquarium. Maybe that's like a simp thing to do. I don't know. But for me, going to an aquarium is not a bad thing. So I don't know how this is regarded as slander or it ruins somebody's reputation. So maybe somebody can explain that to me in the chat. I don't know. But apparently going to an aquarium is haram now or something. So let's continue. So this is something that I do disagree with. First off, the first part, DH is just a clout chaser and he doesn't even know Arabic. Well, that's true for the most part. So I don't think that's part slander. The other part is slander, though. His wife dresses like a terrorist. Astaghfirullah. This is wrong. And this individual, Hakika Jew versus the world, needs to repent and apologize openly, or at least in private to her, for stating this, because it is wrong. She is a niqabi. This is completely wrong. This is haram to say. How dare you? And I mean, I don't care that you're against Daniel, Hakika Jew versus the world, even though I disagree with him profoundly for his lack of ethics. This is wrong to say. Okay, no sister who wears niqab should be treated like this, should be told that they look like a terrorist. Astaghfirullah. Okay, so you need to openly repent. If you're watching this, you need to openly repent and apologize to him now. Okay. Let's continue. So this is more, this is a little bit something I have to explain because I had to actually look this up because I don't even know what was going on here. So Daniel accuses Mahin Islam, and Mahin is not a bot as far as I'm concerned because he actually runs the Mad Mamluks, or is one of the people who runs the Mad Mamluks. So I don't know how you accuse him of being a bot. Okay, so that's weird. But anyway, so Daniel says, why'd you block me on WhatsApp, Mahin, right before spreading old pictures of my family and lying about private conversations? And then Mahin says, because talking to you is like spinning wheels, blah, 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 blah. And then this is something between them two. I don't know what's going on exactly. But I do know what the issue was. That there were individuals who were spreading old pictures of Daniel's wife. Not spreading, actually. They were just revealing public pictures of her to others. She is now a niqabi. And they were revealing pictures of her when she was not a niqabi, when she was posting her pictures online for others to see. Okay? Now, I don't agree with this. In fact, I was against this from day one. However, I understand the context behind it, And I'm partly not that sympathetic. And let me tell you why. So, first off, Khalid, her name, supports Daniel's accusations against Yakin, and also his accusations against those fellow sisters for being glamour models, accusing them of being glamour models. Now, what's fascinating about this is that she has public pictures of herself in the past, posting those, having the very same quality as the ones that are being accused of being glamour models. Okay, so it's evident that they were doing this because they wanted to show the hypocrisy of this family. All right, so it's okay for you to go around calling women glamour models, but if your wife has pictures in the past up, with her face showing and stuff, then it's nobody can say anything. So it's okay for you to humiliate sisters openly who have their pictures up, but if somebody does it to your wife, suddenly it's a problem. Okay. And in the post he posted on May 11th, he said, if you were looking for a wife, miss the ones who are posting glamour shots on social media. Use glamour hijabis. So here's something else that's fascinating. He's kind of incriminating himself as well because he married somebody who did this. He married a sister who posted. Now, I want to be very frank with you. I have no problem with what she did. She posts pictures of herself smiling into a camera. That's fine. I'm not going to sit here and condemn her. I'm not going to call her a glamour model, stuff for law. I would never do that. I would defend her honor. And I will, because I don't see anything wrong with it. If you disagree, you disagree. But I'm not going to sit here and accuse her of something, right? But he's basically saying, giving advice to brothers not to marry sisters who put their photos on social media. And yet he married a sister who put her photos up in public for everyone to see. It's just somewhat, he's basically telling his old self that he was wrong to marry his wife, astaghfirullah. And he doesn't seem to get it. He then goes on to make the same accusations about these sisters who I showed you earlier. Use glamour hijabis to advertise all their classes. Some of these dayuth, he calls these imams dayuth. Okay, that's very significant. Even share glamour pics of their own wives and daughters every Eid. All right. He's also basically insulted all of Indonesia and Malaysia because that's a cultural trait to show pictures of your family during Eid, to give Eid greetings. So apparently every single man in Malaysia is now a dayuth. And that's significant to say because dayuth, so let me remind you, these are the sisters he claims are glamour models. These are the same type of pictures that his own wife had online. Okay. Remember, he claims that these women are equivalent to Playboy models. This is apparently equivalent to a Playboy model. Playboy models. That's okay. So AbuTopi is more concerned about brothers claiming that sister went to an aquarium than he is about glamour models. So it's okay to say, it's wrong to say a sister went to an aquarium, but it's okay to say that these sisters are glamour models. Astaghfirullah. Yeah, okay. So let's continue. And about dayuth. Dayuth is a very significant thing to say about somebody. 3 persons will be not, this is a hadith, this is sahih, according to Albani and Sunnah al-Nasa'i. 3 persons will not be looked upon by Allah Almighty on the day of resurrection. One who disobeys his parents, a woman who imitates men, and a man who allows his woman to fornicate, or a dayuth. Okay? So he's essentially arguing that anyone who has a woman's picture posted online is a dayuth, a husband or a brother or a father. So all the sisters that he showed, apparently their husbands, their brothers, their fathers, they're dayuth. He's claiming that they're going to go to hell. And yet, when people showcase his hypocrisy, suddenly, astaghfirullah, how dare you? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Well, maybe you wouldn't be so offended if you actually had standards, right? If all of you had standards, but you don't. So let me bring this up. Religion is sincerity. This is a Sahih Hadith. Religion is sincerity. Religion is sincerity. Religion is sincerity. They said, to whom, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He said, to Allah, to His book, to His Messenger, and to the Imams of the Muslims, and to their common folk. Your lack of sincerity is evidence of your lack of religion. Your lack of sincerity is your evidence of your lack of religion. Your lack of integrity is evidence of your lack of religion. You can sit here and claim La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah all day long and about how you hate the liberals and everything, but you behave just like them because they are also a religion of convenience. They also pick and choose what they want to follow, just like you. So you may have different conclusions to the liberals, but you behave just like them in their methods, which is what I've been saying this whole time. He goes on to say, like I said, I'm not done yet. Assad has also incited people to dox me on his live streams and also incited violence against me. Unlike Assad, we don't believe in pre-crime. Well, actually, you do believe in pre-crime because you're accusing Akin Institute of working with CVE based on pre-crime narratives. So he's talking here about, well, first off, let's address the inciting violence. In this last stream that I deleted, I also stated that somebody should go smack around AbuTopi and these other people, because I was responding to the banter on a stream where they were saying that somebody should smack some sense into them. Now, nobody who says that, anyone who ever says that doesn't mean it literally. Okay, so I was just playing around. There was no, I mean, right now he's acting like Abdullah Samir. You know, Abdullah Samir hears one thing like this. He's like, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. You know, he's like, he doesn't say that. But he says, oh my God, the Muslims are trying to kill me. Oh my God, oh God. You know, so he's doing the same thing as Abdullah Samir here. And he's trying to criminalize my statements, which is ironic because, you know, he's perfectly fine defending an ISIS person for planning an attack, you know, by shaming me for stopping it, you know, but, you know, whatever. And then he goes on to say that I tried to dox him, and I never said that people should dox him. That's ridiculous. I did say that somebody should find out who he is, right? And the reason I said that, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, unless they can provide something from the Quran and Sunnah that somehow it's wrong to know who you really are. So, so if we continue, sorry, I was just hearing something outside. So I want to find out who they are because I know for a fact that these people live double lives. Okay, because if you see how they behave online, they're completely inconsistent, right? They don't have any integrity, right? So these people live double lives. That's why they're anonymous. It's not because they're scared for their lives or anything. I mean, if security services wanted to do something, they could find them regardless if somebody doxed them or not, right? It's not because they're scared for lives. It's because they're scared of what people will find out about their real lives. See, AbuTopi is like a video game avatar, right? Like somebody who plays World of Warcraft. It's like an avatar on World of Warcraft, okay? And behind the avatar is the real person, right? And the real person and AbuTopi, the avatar, are not the same thing. They're not the same person, okay? They never were, all right? Because you can see it in the way that they behave, right? It's the same way with Haytham Saif ad-Din, right? Haytham Saif ad-Din is not really who he is online. In fact, he's a pediatric mental health professional, a pediatric surgeon, or excuse me, a pediatric psychologist who works near Toronto. And he knows that if his views are shown on, you know, if somebody attaches his views to his real person, like all his views about hating kuffar and things like this and supporting against taghut and all these things, he'll probably lose his job, right? He'll probably lose all of his clients. He'll lose his license, right? So, I mean, Haytham Saif ad-Din has more conviction for his paycheck than he does for the deen. So these people these aren't real. The way that they present themselves online, this is not real, okay? So that's why they remain anonymous, because they don't want people to find out what they do. They don't want people to find them in real life. So then he continues on. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. This refutation is almost done, I promise. It is rather interesting that I continue to live in Assad's head rent-free. And are we that threatening to you that you must do your best to slander us, as paint us as AQ supporters? Right? Well, first off, you're not threatening to me, because if you were threatening, I wouldn't respond to you. I'm responding to you because you're not threatening, right? Number two, it is rather interesting that I continue to live in Assad's head rent-free. Yes, AbuTopi, let me admit right now, you live in my head rent-free. But let me explain what that means, because you think it means that you're important, that somehow you live in my head because I'm obsessed with you, because, you know, you're so important to me, even though I talk about other people more than you, like Abdullah Samir and stuff, right? Let me tell you how you live in my head rent-free. You live in my head rent-free the same way that my spoons and my forks and my knives, my utensils live in my kitchen rent-free. You live in my head rent-free the same way that my toilet, my toilet paper, my bidet lives in my bathroom rent-free. You live in my head rent-free the same way that my car lives in my garage rent-free. In other words, there's like a little box in my head, a little toolbox, where I pull you out whenever I need you to use you for something. As an example, you don't live in my head rent-free as a guest. You live in my head rent-free as a possession, as a means to an end. That's where you live. That's how you live. So yes, you do live in my head rent-free because I own you. You get it now? Okay. He goes on to say, how about you respond properly to the CV allegations against Yakin without whitewashing, right? Well, I didn't whitewash. You just ignored 90% of the refutation and focused on two parts by utilizing pre-crime methods to accuse Yakin Institute of working with CVE. So how about you respond to my actual refutation instead of ignoring everything that I've written? Okay, continue. He goes on to say, oh, and Julio isn't the only one with links to CV. More is to come, inshallah. So he's actually admitted here that he's actually trying to reveal more stuff. And it seems to me that he is working alongside Daniel and the Muslim Skeptic team. So they're going to try to reveal more stuff here, I think, in the near future. But let me be honest. If this is the quality of your work, son, I don't expect much. I mean, I eviscerated the last article you guys revealed on Yakin Institute. You don't think I'll do it again? You were easy the first time, you're easy now, and you're going to be easy in the future. If I can take out 12 of you guys in one shot, I can do it again. Okay, so you shouldn't even waste your time, because I'm going to make an example out of you again. All right. But he goes on, he says, but let it be known publicly that Hassan Ali is a liar and a slanderer and should not be trusted. Well, by the evidence, it's clear that I can be trusted because, as proven by all the evidence that I've shown, you're the liar and you're the slanderer, right? So all of these claims that he's mentioned that I lied about him are in fact true. Has AbuTopi et al. Falsely accused me on numerous occasions of working with CVE and being a traitor to this ummah, even going so far as to support Haytham Saifuddin, who openly declares me as a munafiq because of said false allegations? Yes. Have all the individuals that I mentioned throughout previous streams and this stream either slandered other people's wives, sisters, and mothers as glamour models or openly supported people who have without any criticism towards them at all? Yes. Finally, he says this: if Assad does not cease to retract his lies against me and repent, may Allah deal with him, for Allah is most just. Yes, he is most just, but he's not going to be dealing with me, son. Not in regards to this issue, because you've revealed yourself to be the one who's dishonest and presenting a false narrative. So I think you should probably apply this to yourself and stop projecting your own insecurities onto me. And I'll leave you with two more quotes to show you how funny these guys are in terms of their inconsistency and how they actually represent the very liberals they're attacking. He goes on to say, the deviancy of this is a different tweet altogether. The deviancy of the Khawarij is not comparable to the deviancy of secular liberal panderers in the West. You will find the latter often misquotes or lies in order to defend their ridiculous position. Well, first off, I don't agree with that. I think the Khawarij are just as bad, or if worse. But he says the latter, the liberals, misquote and lie in order to defend their ridiculous positions. But that's exactly what you do, because you have a liberal mindset. Next, another tweet. Charlie Hebdo is the greatest manifestation of what secular liberalism is truly about. Why? Freedom from what? Accountability, because it promotes freedom from accountability. But that's exactly what you promote by deleting all your tweets, by never apologizing, by never calling your own people to account because of your tribalism. You do exactly the same thing as the liberals you accuse. You refuse to be held accountable for your own sins and your own errors. So how are you any different from the liberals that you condemn? You're not. You are a liberal. You just have different conclusions. And that is the presentation, my friends and family. Now, before ending this refutation, I want to mention something. I want to give AbuTopi a way out. I want to provide him an olive branch. So I'm going to go over 4 possible options he can take after this refutation, because I'm going to leave this up. Number 1, let's go over the bad options first. Number 1, AbuTopi, you can delete your account or private your account, which I think you've already done, okay? But that would be a very cowardly move, and it would showcase that I actually have stuff on you. Okay, so I wouldn't do that. So I would reverse your decision right now. Option number 2. Option number 2. You can ignore this, which is not going to work for you either, because I want everyone in this chat right now, or anyone, to share this video on Twitter, and also against him. I want you all to hold him to account, okay? Number 3, you could try to respond to it, but that's going to be the worst decision you make, because that's not going to happen, son. You can try your best, but I have destroyed every possible loophole you could ever possibly try. There is no way you're going to be able to respond to this with any level of sincerity or truth attached. Okay, you're going to make yourself look worse, trust me. So don't do it. Masked Arab before you failed to do that. Sargon of Akkad failed to do that. Griffix, Crownton T, all the people that I've refuted over the years, they've all failed. You will be the same way, trust me, son. Okay, don't try. So after all that's done, let me give you the actual option that I think you should take. Okay? Here's the option. You need to publicly apologize to me on Twitter and repent openly. And you need to pin that tweet for 1 month. Okay? Because I think that's very gracious, by the way, because you've been slandering me for more than a month. All right? So that's number 1. Okay? Number 2, you need to produce a thread condemning Daniel for calling those sisters glamour models, and a thread condemning Haytham Saif ad-Din for making takfir of me. You and Salah and the Sultanate, by the way, you need to both do these things. Number 3, in response to you doing this, I'm going to offer you something. In response to doing this, I will take down this video. I will privatize it. I won't delete it yet because I can't trust you, but I will privatize it, and I will accept your apology, and I will come to your defense if people come after you. I will do that because I'm a man of honor. Next, I will invite you to my Discord channel, and I will teach you how to properly think critically. I will teach you how to do dawah properly and how to do refutations properly, and I will do it for free. I will take you in as my student, okay? And I will do it for free. In other words, I won't charge you for it like Daniel does. So that's the final option, okay? If you want to take it. And if you are a man of integrity and principle, as you claim, you will do these things. You will take that final option. So, I think I'm being very generous. And I mean what I said at the end. I wasn't doing that to insult you or to humiliate you, because I'm not like that. I legitimately want to teach you. I legitimately want to turn you into somebody who can actually do good for this ummah. But if you don't want to behave that way, then I'm sorry. I guess this video is going to stay up. So take those things into consideration. Take what I'm saying into consideration, and please do as I ask. For your own sake, for the sake of yourself. And if you don't, it's no skin off my back, because at the end of the day, I get your good deeds at the day of judgment. So, regardless of what you do, I still win. So please, swallow all of the pride that you have, and actually think about Islam. Think about your principles. Don't think about your ego. Don't think about your identity for once. Think about Islam. What is the right thing to do? I'm offering you a chance, so I expect you to take it, inshallah. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly. Please support this video if you can. Comment. Please tell me how the refutation was, inshallah. And I hope to speak with you all soon. I have to go take care of my baby, and because I've already spent too much time on this guy. And I do hope that he makes the right decision. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.